Alright, today I am not in the garage. As you can, well, you maybe can't see, but I am on the roof of my house, way high up. And what I am doing is that we got a big rainstorm the other day, earlier this week, and I had water pouring down in the front door, behind this brick, siding, I guess they call it. Do they call it brick siding? It's not siding, it's just the brick exterior of the house. Water getting in through directly below here, and so I suspected that maybe this window was leaking. And as you can, well, I can show you, this whole sill is all rotted out. So today I am going to be attempting to replace that with something that doesn't leak. And so let's get to work. As you can see, this wood here is pretty soft, and I think almost looks like the only thing holding it together is the paint. And so if you can imagine, the rain in East Tennessee here can get pretty crazy sometimes, and so water pounding on this sill, I'm thinking all the water is soaking into that rotten wood and going behind my brick exterior down into and escaping through the front door out there. So I am going to start by cutting this sill out and then seeing what's underneath. One thing I've want to be careful with is tools falling off the roof onto my family or other people that might be coming to visit. It also would make it really hard to get to. So I've got everything in a toolbox, and I'm going to kind of keep it there instead of leaving it in random places. I had an incident at work years ago where I was working in the ceiling installing some equipment, and I had a ladder there, and I left I don't know what it was a screwdriver or a hammer or something on the very top of this ladder, and a coworker came in, and I don't know, I think he was going to move the ladder out of the way because he was doing something, and the thing fell on his head. He was really angry with me for a long time, and so I don't want that to happen to anyone anymore, and so I'm really sorry about that to him. And so kind of just be careful when you're up on a roof. You don't want things falling on other people, especially yourself. So that's enough of that, so let's get to work. So I think the first plan of attack is to get this, I suspect this has been leaking before, and so, because it looks like someone's globbed on a lot of caulking and things on here recently, or before we lived here. So I'm going to start by trying to pull some of that caulking out, and then we'll see how the wood is constructed to kind of figure out a best plan for removing it without damaging anything. So let's see. I'm just going to use a little pry tool here. It's actually not a screwdriver, it's actually a pry tool. So let's see if we can. That's coming off pretty easy, actually. So this looks like a pretty common construction I've seen on our other windows. I've got a sill plate, and it looks like this is literally, I think, the same shape from Home Depot. It was literally labeled sill plate. I've got this profile here, which looks like, I think they call it brick molding. So it looks like this might be rotten in the lower few inches, and so I'll probably replace at least a couple inches of that. And then I don't know what this is. This is probably just some kind of window trim spacer material, or maybe somebody knows if there's a special name for that. But that's also, I think I'm going to have to replace this, and a little section of this. The other side, my brick molding is in pretty good shape, so I might be okay there. So I think we're just going to, what's the next plan of attack? I suppose I could get my little buzzer, my trim saw, and get the rest of this caulking out. Let's try that. Alright, I think I got all that stuff cleared out. This actually was much easier to use than the little pry tool. So if you have one, think of that as a useful tool here. So I think what's next is I'm going to try and maybe slice down at this joint. I'm going to try and get this sill piece out as one chunk, although I'm pretty sure it's not going to come out as one piece. And so there's probably a couple nails in here. I was able to get this saw in pretty good distance in a few spots, and so there might be a couple nails in here. So I'm going to try probably slicing it all around the border and then seeing where I can pry it up at. I can feel some good wood here or a nail. I'm not sure. It didn't sound like a nail. You can see that blade goes all the way down in there with almost no resistance once it gets past the caulking. See, I think we got everything except for here. Oh no, I did get there. Got wood right here, strangely enough. Everywhere else there's none. I used to think these tools were pretty useless, but for some things they actually are pretty handy. Just for slicing into stuff where you could get in a razor blade or something. This is much longer, and so it's easier to get in there straight. So get yourself one of those if you can. All right, so we'll start with an easy pry tool or a gentle one, and then see if we need to step up to something bigger. That is rotten. I think we're gonna need it. Oh well, maybe not. There's, kind of see that whole piece coming up. And it's starting to split right where it was all spongy here. We're gonna definitely gonna need a better pry tool, but let's try. Of course, that's not gonna. Well, okay, that came out. That's definitely been getting wet in there, so that is definitely, I think, my problem. So that's always good. Here, was I just saying about having things fall off the roof, and I just threw one off? But at least no one was there, and I'm kind of watching out. And I don't wanna use the window as a pry tool. So there we go. That's definitely been getting water in there. So definitely need to fix that. You can kind of see down in here, this sheathing is wet, and so I am 99.999% sure that's where water was getting in there, because it's been 3 days since it rained and it's still a little damp, and so and it's supposed to rain a whole bunch in the next few days, so I'd like to get this taken care of as soon as possible. So I'm going to continue ripping this out and then see where we're at. Looks like it's just glue holding this thing on. Let's see. I think I'm going to cut out this bottom section of this because I know it's rotted, and that might help me maybe get a little bit. I'd like to get a steel tool that can really get back there and pry, since this one I'm really afraid to put too much pressure on it with the glass. Let's see. Yeah, the rot really goes up high in this thing. Oh, there's another staple in there. That would help. There's a chunk of rotten wood that's there we go. Actually, it's still... This brick molding is not so bad. It's just the outside layer that's been compromised by water. So it looks like it's pretty... So I won't have to replace much of that. So that's a good sign. I do have a staple here that needs to be replaced or removed. There we go. Let's get these out of the way. Yeah, we're gonna have to come back and get a steel tool to get this. I discovered that down below the glass there's a little piece of wood, or it's a little piece, it's the wood that's supporting this edge that those staples were going into. That's pretty solid, and so I think if I pry on that, it looks like I might be able to pull this piece away. So that's kind of what I'm doing here. Gently. Does seem like it's really glued well. Well, just try and cut through any glue that's up there. I don't like using that metal pry bar. I'm still looking for another nail in here that might be not obvious. I don't see one. It must just be this putty or whatever. Actually, it just feels like silicone that they use to seal the edge there. It looks like I cut myself somehow. Yeah, it's still bonded to the glass. I can see when I'm prying, I don't know if you can see this, but when I'm prying this pry bar back under the wood, this wood is pulling the glass with it. So there's still definitely a bond between the glass and this trim piece here. So I'm gonna have to figure out a better plan for that because I don't want to break anything. All right, so after a little bit more poking around, I can tell that there is some glue or some other adhesive or something between this wooden trim piece and I guess the sheathing beneath it, because I can get my little saw in there just a little bit, and there's something stopping it before it should get to the glass. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut that, see if I can cut whatever that is. Well, the glass is still moving along with it. I'm almost afraid that I'm gonna get... I wonder if these are double paned windows, and so I don't know that they have argon in between them, but I suppose if they did, that argon is long gone because there's no sealant between the glass and the little spacer pane there. So that was one of my concerns, is that if I'm doing all this repair and then the low E gas escapes, then I'm going to get a bunch of condensation inside the window, which it almost looks like I already do. And so this may be, this window may not be long in its life anyway. And so I'm almost tempted to see if I can slice down along the glass, because my little tool has got a flat blade, so if I go slow, I may be okay. I think that might have done it. Yep. So yeah, you can see there's this kind of this tan colored glue that's what's holding it on there. What I don't see is any glue between the glass and that gray bar that's behind there. In fact, here there is it looks like what's a knot in the wood that's letting air get up inside between those two panes of glass. And so I wonder if that's a big part of why I've got these little crystal formations on the inside. It's condensation from humid air in East Tennessee, and it's got got salts and minerals inside the air, and so it gets up in there and then evaporates and then leaves the salts and the stuff that was in the water. And we got this sill out, we got this trim piece out. I think we need to get the rest of this out, so I'll just let the camera go on high speed for that. I think what this saw doesn't really, it's such a fine tooth that it doesn't really clear material away. So even though you're cutting, it's just packing all the chips and things down into wood, so it starts to not be able to do anything. So you got to kind of cut and then move it around to clear out all the chips and then go down deeper. So I think that's what my trouble is here. And so I'm gonna try and pry that out. Pretty sure I can get this rotten wood out easily. There we go. Actually, I'm not... There is another... I don't know if you can see it, but there is another hole in the wood under this pane of glass. There's another. See this? This is just a knot removed from the wood that's supporting here, and there's no... Doesn't appear to be any sealant, unless it's clear sealant between the glass and that piece of, that metal divider in there. So that's possible, I suppose, but this is just a huge knot. Like, why would you put that in there? Ah, there's another staple. That's what was holding it in. I thought I pulled one out of there, but there was a second one. And there must be one in here too. Yep, there is. I think I got it. So that's that one. And I am going to replace the bottom of this brick molding too, because it is Well, it's actually, this is the sill that's wet and rotten. It'll just be easier to get that. You want to, one of the things you got to pay attention to is the water drip line, is that you don't want water to be able to get caught someplace and have to sit there for a long time without draining away. Otherwise it'll sit and it'll eventually wear through paint, or if the caulking gets too old and it starts to open up a gap, water will start seeping in there, which is what happened here because no one did any maintenance for years evidently. And so you want to make sure you stagger you want to build it up from the bottom up. That way water runs off and it runs downhill all the time. So that's what we're going to do here. I think I'm just going to cut this brick molding off right flush with this vertical piece where it comes down. So nail, there's a screw in there. That's what's going on. This is definitely not going to cut through a screw. I'm guessing the screw is from this. It was created to hold this vertical to this horizontal. It's probably screwed in from the bottom, is my guess. Let's see if we can eat around it. There we go. Got that. All right, now I'm just cleaning up this old caulking off the siding, and I think then we'll start our next plan of attack, is figuring out what kind of pieces need to replace this. Alright, so one thing I need to do is decide how much of this rotted molding I need to replace. And I think I may just have to keep cutting up until you find dry wood. In my case it's wet, so I know what's bad. If it's soaking wet, it's not good. So I'm going to cut up maybe 1/2 inch at a time and just kind of nibble at it and see where I'm left with. I have 4 foot length of it, so I could actually cut a good portion of this out and replace it, but no sense in risking damaging some of the window framing if I don't need to. So that's next year. Let's try that. Alright, I'm back after cleaning up the windowsill here, and it's starting to get a little cloudy and windy, and so essentially what I've got is I've cut this little 1x2 or whatever it was, but cut it was so it's got a little bit of a chamfer on it to shed water so that it doesn't collect like I was talking about, and I think the original one had that as well. So it's just got a 20-degree angle cut on it with a table saw there, and so that's gonna go and replace that. I've noticed that either my board is a little warped, or it actually looked like the sheathing here is kind of swollen up in the center, so it's got a little bit of a bow to it, and so I'm not sure if I should nail my board down, or if I should maybe try and shave some of this swollen sheathing so it's flat. That actually might be a better plan than trying to bend this and hold it down. So well, I can say that's gonna go there, and I got a piece of this, I think it was just called sill plate, or sill, window sill, something or other. It's also got a little chamfer built onto it, so it sheds water. This one's made out of PVC, so it won't rot anymore, and so that goes in there, and so that's gonna sit there. Then what I've got in this corner here that's rotted, I've got a couple, just a smaller section of this brick molding that I'll scribe and mark to fill in there. And then I've got a couple little pieces to, I think I may have to cut this little edge off of here just to make it easier to get a full-size piece of wood in there. Otherwise I've got to glue in like a, I don't know, a half-inch piece of wood, which I suppose I could do, but there's just not much to glue it to, and it's easier if I can get maybe a finishing nail at least in there while I'm gluing it in. So the other thing over here, ooh, we're gonna have to loosen this tripod up a little bit. Other thing I've got, all right. Other thing I've got over here is that I have just got, I think it's about 1/4 of an inch of gap above the sill here, and so I think I may just be able to cut a little wedge of that brick molding and glue it in there, and you know, caulk it all up after it's done. And we'll need to prime and paint. I'm realizing some of this paint is flecking off, and so I've got to probably scrape it and repaint it, because paint getting into the raw wood is just going to soak it, and it's just going to damage other things. And so that's probably going to happen very soon after this too. I think what I decided to do is I'm going to try and trim off this swollen sheathing. It looks like it's 1/4 inch up above the brick, and then it dies down to maybe 1/8 of an inch off to the side here. And so I'm just going to use this tool that I didn't think I'd use very much. We're going to try that and see if we just shave off some of this extra sheathing. Maybe I can show you what I'm doing. You can kind of see right here, there's two pieces there's the sheathing, and then there's an inner, I think it must be the framing, and so I cut through the sheathing, and it was low, but the framing was still sticking up a little bit higher, and so it's causing that board to kind of rise up on this edge. So I think so all I am doing is kind of shaving this down, and then shaving it. I'm kind of shaving it down with the blade here, and then kind of cutting it across so it's nice and square in here, so my board can get glued and screwed in there. I am happy there. So I've got this cleaned up. I'm going to run a bead of caulk all across this joint here up onto this front face, and then I'll probably, well, that's probably all I'll do, because then this board is laid in there. So okay, let's see. This sill really wants to fall off the roof. Okay. Let's get this in there. So that is in, and I got some caulking squeezing up through the edge, and so I'm thinking I may want to kind of put a bead across here now while everything's still wet and try and force a little bit extra into this front edge here. Little tool I got is just a little silicone corner, I don't know, corner bead. It just allows you to run it along the edge and it creates a nice little consistent bead. That's kind of nice. So, okay, let's get okay, and then we'll just run it along here. I can clearly see I used too much caulking. Let's see how much extra I got. Go there. So this is what I got going on. This is my sill. You can kind of see I've even got a gap in the brick here, so I'm gonna have to caulk that, obviously, and there's a few spots that are like that because we don't want any water getting in there anymore. So that's what I'm gonna do. So I think I'm gonna face nail. I'm gonna glue on the bottom of this to this joint and even down here. And then I'm going to try and face nail through, I think through this section into this trim board there. And then I will fill in this stuff here. And that little wedge over there, that should be nice and easy. We'll just cut a little wedge and that might even just glue in. I won't be able to nail that. I am going to trim this little board up here so that I get a nice full-size piece that I can get a finishing nail in there to hold it in, because I think that's a little bit too big for glue. So let's cut that out. There's a staple there, of course. That's right where I'm going to want to nail it. Here's a scraper. Ooh, the wind is picking up here. If I don't finish this by the time the rain starts coming on, I have to open this window and put a tarp over it. And a little razor blade to scrape this excess off. Because I don't think anything will stick to it. Okay. Maybe I can use that to kind of clean this edge off here. Now I've got my piece that goes in there, and it is slightly too tall. So luckily I brought a saw. I'm halfway through. I am going to go down to the garage and just cut this the way it needs to be cut. I will be right back. This is silly. Okay, nice and easy on the miter saw. And I think that's going to fit much nicer. Yep. There we go. So we'll get some glue or caulking behind there. And I drilled a little pilot hole in here so I can get a finishing nail in there. Definitely want to be careful hammering your glass. I could feel this thing moving. Alright, so let's finish caulking that. I think this PVC has a profile in it, and I think this is a little drip edge if it's hanging over something, or it may go into like a tongue and groove type siding. I don't have that. Actually, I don't have anything to seal against on the bottom, so I may just run it on this very bottom edge, because there's a giant gap in between here that I can stick my hand in there, so that is almost thicker than my whole jam here. So we're gonna have to figure out how that's gonna work. I also got this. Oh, there we go. So I've got glue up along this top face that's gonna mate with that, or this board here. And we're just gonna get it over, under. That actually works pretty good. Yeah, there was almost no point in getting caulking underneath this edge here, because you can kind of see, like here, the brick isn't even reaching here, so there's just like maybe 1/8 of an inch of brick underneath this bottom edge. So I'm just gonna have to caulk the face of it really well, and so I think I need to see if I can drill a pilot hole and then get a finishing nail in there to hold that in place. Right there. And we'll do 2 more. One in the center and one on the other end. Sure drills nice and easy. Okay. See if I can do this without bending it. 2 to go. Ooh, the wind is kicking up. And you should always, what I should have done is cleaned this off before I used it. Clearly I need more practice doing this. That's actually doing nice. Nice job. Okay. I should probably push that caulking into the... No, that's not gonna work. These gaps of mortar are really hard to fill. Let's tool that edge. I'm going to wipe this excess caulking up here instead of trying to drag it across the whole windowsill. Alright, so I've got to get my my brick mold in there, and that is right here, and it is too long, and so I'm going to mark it and go cut it with the bandsaw, or the whatever saw, miter saw. Bandsaw, miter saw. I've got to get that 20-degree edge on the bottom to match this angle here, chamfer, whatever it's called there. So I'm going to mark that there. I know it's 20 degrees, but sit there, and then right there. Okay, so kind of got a mark here, and I got my angle there. So I'll be right back. Okay, the camera shut off right when I was hammering that in and talking to myself, evidently, because the camera wasn't on. So I put a pile or a finishing nail in there just to hold it in place. Now I'm gonna finish filling in the caulking around the edges that are the joints are not full, and then I'll tool it, and then I think we might be done for today, unless I can go get some. Well, I gotta wait for the caulking to dry before I can paint. I suppose I could sand and remove some of the paint here, but if it's gonna rain, I don't want to do that quite yet. So, all right. So we got a nice big cavity over here. And under here. Man, that is just... I think I like metal better. There's no goo to deal with. Well, let's just scrape that off. Alright, so this is kind of the window. It's got a really big arch up there. Here is my patched piece. This is that sill, and this is that trim filler. It's got, you know, all the joints are caulked. This profile doesn't exactly match the old one, but it is really close, and I think I can sand them to match, and so that way when I paint it, it'll look appropriate. So all the gaps are filled in or sealed, and over here you can kind of see my little wedge piece here. That's filled in. Actually, looks like there's a slight misalignment in this edge, but I think nobody's going to notice, even me, until just now. So I think my angle is probably not quite 20 degrees. It's probably 21 or 22 or something like that. So look like I mismeasured a little bit. So that's it for now. So we'll come back after it's dried and painted, and hopefully it doesn't rain and cause a big leak. Actually, that'll be a big test. If this stays dry and I don't get water through my front door, I'll know this was the problem. Alright, so what I'm doing now, before I start painting or doing any more caulking and finishing and sanding, I gotta scrape all of the old silicone sealant out. Someone just came, I think in the middle after it was installed, probably trying to fix the leak that they found that we didn't know about when we bought the house. They just slathered some silicone all the way around, and it's really messy. It's missing, there's gaps and holes in where it was applied. You can see up here, it's just missing a whole chunk. And it's just a blob of, 1/2-inch thick bead of silicone that's not even sealed to anything. So I am scraping as much of that out as I can, so that when I paint it and caulk it with non-silicone caulking, the paint will stick to it and it'll look reasonably nice and it'll be easier to clean up. So I am here scraping the silicone out so that my regular caulk will stick to it. And this will be a nice boring video, so I'll speed it up. Okay, I am back on the roof. It is a month later since I finished the window sill repair and painted it. It's just been, the weather out here has been crazy the past month or so. Got a huge snowstorm that on one day put more snow than we'd had all winter. And then we had a windstorm that broke a tree down, and I needed to get that down. It was kind of hung up in some other trees, and so I had to cut that down and got an interesting video of that too. I'll probably put up in a few weeks. I haven't had a chance to get on the roof here when there wasn't ice or snow or wind or stuff like that. I don't know that you can really tell from any distance that there's been anything done, but there's that one window. You can kind of see my brick molding doesn't quite line up. The joints don't quite line up, so I don't know what to do about that. I guess I could have just fit it up better, but it's such a tiny section. The other side's a little more obvious. I'm not going to worry about the joint. It would take a lot. I think technically what you would do is you just replace the whole molding section rather than trying to splice in a section. That's probably what I should have done, but this looks pretty good, and it looks like it's going to last for a nice long time. We had a really big rainstorm a few days after that, and I saw 0 water streaming in through my front door, so I'm going to call it good. So that's it for today. One of the other things that's with the weather here, it is now springtime. I think it was cold yesterday, but it's lawn mowing time. And when I went out to get the mower, my son informed me that the mower was broken, and so I needed to fix that. And so I got a good video repair of the steering on that other vehicle. If you like that kind of thing, stick around for that, and we will see you later. Thanks. Bye.